said yes.
Yeah, I did say yes, and then I looked up, and I didn't know that we were actually switching over. Hello, everyone. Hi, Ricky. Lovely to see you. I hope everyone is having a good evening. We're just chilling here.
We got some kind of problem.
Hello, Chip. Lovely to see you. Thank you for resubscribing. Oh.
Sorry.
Norris. What happened? No, that's mine. No, it's mine. Okay. I cannot see chat at the moment, but I will in a second. In the meantime, enjoy the schmeech.
Yeah,
alright, here we go.
Bells, so that should be fixed here in a moment.
Oh, okay. Hello. Alright. So, hello, Armac. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying this Smeagol interlude. Yeah. You got it. All right. Oh yeah, there's no. Oh, there they go. Yay! Emotes are back.
Yay.
Oh, because they also weren't showing up in there.
Correct.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So, today we're gonna be talking about Matoaka, which is the birth name of the woman that we usually know as Pocahontas. And I am going to be, I keep on going back and forth between the two names in my head, so we're gonna see if I land on one. Oh my gosh, my hair is just driving me crazy today. We're gonna see if I land on one while we're talking about her. I don't know. We're gonna find out. But yeah, so there's a lot. Oh, hello, Raffle Iron Chef. Lovely to see you. I'm at a birthday party for my stepdad, uncle, and one of their friends. Oh my gosh, do they have the same birthday or is it like the same week? I'm surrounded by boomers and we'll be in and out. Oh my gosh. What a day. So I have some more like light dremeling to do on JR. Mostly just smoothing things out, so it should hopefully not be loud and I should be able to talk over it. Okay. They love to talk about inflation.
There's you got the new bunch of
yes,
pens,
I'm about to show them off.
One of them should be ideal.
Yes, that is my hope. So, producer Brian got me a bunch of new Dremel bits, which is very exciting. And they are made out of 5 different materials. And we are going to find out which ones we like the best. It's all a few days apart. My family, like extended family, we have several birthdays that multiple people were born on, and then like clusters of birthdays. And so basically we used to just have like once a month or every other month just getting the whole family together, which is a lot of family. I love them very much. But yeah, like my sister, my cousin, and I think another cousin's baby are all born on the same day. Like they all have the same birthday.
Do you want to turn on your Tens unit?
No, I'm good at the moment. I'm gonna wait a little while. So yeah, so here's JR's Funko.
Off of the iPad.
Wait, there we are. So I have him holding a sprocket and a bag of candy, and we've got his dreads, and he's gonna have his bandana over the dreads, so you're not gonna see the like joint here. That way the dreads can still move under the bandana. And so today I need to smooth out the bits that I've dremeled so that I can prime it. I also have here, let's see, Franny will get primed as well, probably. She doesn't really need any dremeling, but here she is with her microphone, ready to do stand-up, and eventually there's going to be a wire like coming out from where the microphone is, and it'll lead to a microphone stand. So we have all that to look forward to. There's also the fact that several of these lovely items are finished and ready to be sent off, and so we might wind up packaging them. I wish I'd thought of that sooner and gotten more prepared for that, but yeah. So we're just gonna kind of see what winds up happening while
we're still gonna put them in separate packages, though, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking Anna and Shank together, and then Brett and Brooke together.
Yeah.
And then Jordan and Audie aren't quite ready to be sent off yet.
Yeah.
So 2 different packages, just in case. Like, I was so nervous when John's Funko was being sent in that it was going to get lost in the post or something. And so, like, the terror that would ensue of having 4 in one box might be actually fatal. So
just remember that if one of them does somehow get lost, you're going to be relieved that not all 4 were in that box, rather than annoyed that they were not all in one box and didn't get lost.
Right. Yes. So
it's important to frame your mind ahead of time if that occurs.
That is. Do we need to switch that? I think I do. Yes, I do. All right. So, Pocahontas. So what I tried to do, I know that I mention this a lot, but you know, there's always new people coming in, so I try really hard to go with sources that are not like normal sources, and like try and tell the story from a different angle than people would. Oh, thank you for resubscribing, Paige. It was a long weekend, not gonna lie. Kind of nice to be back. But we had a really fun movie night on Sunday. We watched a movie about Lizzie Borden with Kristen Stewart and Chloe. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Sobieski. Savigny.
There's no Edsky.
I don't. Yeah, her. I'm sorry. I really don't remember her name. And I was not sure what to expect, and it wound up actually being really good. Or at least fairly good. Like, bless you. I would recommend it to people who know the true story, because they definitely, like, I enjoyed it the way that I enjoy From Hell, where it's absolutely ridiculous, and they went with, like, the weirder theories, and, like, but it got executed really well, I thought.
So did that.
Yes. Okay, if I slow it down.
Yeah, slow it way down.
There we go. So yeah, so basically I just gotta smooth out these bits so that when it's primed it won't look weird. But yeah, so I would recommend Lizzie, I think. Especially if you've watched the Lizzie video and Lizzie Borden video, and so you know the actual story and the facts and everything.
Hello, Atomic Elbow.
Hey, Atomic Elbow, welcome. Savini?
Something like that.
Okay. I've mostly just seen her in American Horror Story. Like, I haven't really watched a lot of her stuff. But one of the what's his name? He's like the older dude who's in all the seasons. I want to say Richard O'Neill, and I know that's not his name. Richard O'Hare? No. Him. If you've watched American Horror Story, I think you know who I'm talking about. So he was in it, and he played the uncle, who's like extra sus in the movie. But yeah, it was fun. So I got new bits. Yes. So the Dremel is fully charged now. It did die in the middle of deep dive while I was dremeling JR. And got a bunch of fancy new bits made out of different materials. So right now I'm just kind of working on smoothing out JR so that I can prime it and it won't be all funky. And yeah, so many bits. Yeah, so today, oh no, I popped off a little bit of it. Oh, so I was saying, like, I try and kind of go with, like, different angles than normal, when I'm approaching a subject, especially one that is fairly well known. So, like, um, like, just to use this example again, like with Jack the Ripper, I focused on the victims and their lives instead of, like, their murders. And so for this one, I tried to get most of my information from native sources instead of white people sources, which made for a very interesting researching time, I gotta say. Is the noise annoying? If it is annoying, I can stop drumming and do other stuff. Let me know, please. Because I don't know how much it's coming through the mics. But yeah, so it was really interesting. One of the sources that I found and liked a lot was a podcast about Native American women who are trafficked. And they pointed out, and I found it really, really interesting, that Pocahontas was actually the first victim of human trafficking in, or at least documented victim of human trafficking in what became the United States. And I found that a very interesting way of looking at it, and a very accurate way of looking at it as well, because there's a lot of shit that didn't get into the movie. Let me see. Noise is fine and you're wearing earbuds. Okay, cool. Thank you. My weekend was one that I don't want again. Oh no, Saturday wasn't bad besides back hurting and muscle spasms. Ugh, I know that feeling very well. Then I was dealing with extreme pain and muscle spasms every time I moved. I know that as well. And standing for longer than 5 minutes felt like my legs were going to give out. Ugh. Then I had to deal with a brain that was going so fast that I felt like a deer in headlights. Oh no, like really bad anxiety? Yeah. Oh, but she was in love. Yeah, totally.
At 11.
That really sucks, Paige. I am familiar with all of those sensations, and those are all awful, awful feelings. And to, like, go through, like, all of them in one weekend is a lot. I hope you're okay now. Are you feeling better? Butt's full. Sorry. But yeah, that is awful. I hope you're feeling better now. Have you been able to rest? Do you have, like, muscle relaxers or something that you can use? Yes, my love. What's up? What would you like? How can I help you? Oh, hi.
No, she's knocking the camera around. Oh, she's knocking that camera around.
Oh, Smeagol, what are you doing? Smeagol, come here. Come here. Hey.
She's stuck in an infinite loop.
Shoot. Come here.
Okay. Come here. Stay.
Stay here. Hey, chill out. Alright. Yes, I know. I'm not painting today, Sminks. You don't need to grab the paint. Smeagol might halt and catch fire. Okay. Yeah.
Actually, fun fact. Yes, you're right. Atomic Elbow. You may actually be aware of where the halt and catch fire, or what chip the halt and catch fire thing came from. Possibly. Let me know if you are. I added a bit of a delay to keep to ensure that the stream didn't like lose frames, so there's always going to be a delay now. But the original halt and catch fire was a accidentally included instruction on the 6800 chip. Not the 68000 like you saw in the original Macintosh and Amiga computers, but in the 6800 chip, the chip that preceded it. And it was a undocumented instruction that was accidentally, it wasn't even like designed or intended to be included. It's just that they had a certain number of instructions that were able to be selected by your machine code. And they only documented, like, I don't remember the exact number. Let's say they only documented 18 of them. And the 19th one, which was not designed in, it was just an accident of how the circuitry was wired, caused the CPU to stop doing anything else and run at full tilt, and then heat up the entire CPU at an extremely high rate, which meant that it would effectively halt, and then because the CPU had no, like, cooler on it typically, it would eventually heat up and catch fire. So it was halt and catch fire. So it was also called the HCF instruction because of halt and catch fire. But yeah, that's actually where they came from. Paige said a combination of anxiety and I think stress. Still dealing with a lot of it, not getting much sleep. Have been falling asleep at 4 a.m. and up by 8 a.m. Gee, yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
We're very familiar with shitty sleep in this apartment.
Yeah. Have muscle relaxers. They don't really do much and it lasts a long period. Yeah. It was. It was a joke. The name was a joke in response to an actual bug on those CPUs. And then other CPUs with similar instructions ended up getting named that. And I don't recall if there was ever actually a case of the CPU catching fire literally, but they could damage themselves from overheating. So, like, close enough. And in the wrong circumstances, it definitely could have caught fire.
I've never even heard of this thing. I don't think.
Mackenzie Davis? I'm not sure who Mackenzie Davis is.
Hello, Andrew. Welcome. Mackenzie Davis.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He's familiar.
I'm guessing an actor.
I am just, anyone who has joined, I am just finishing up, smoothing out some of the drumming that I've done on the JR Funko. And then I can prime him. And we are going to be talking about Matoaka, aka Pocahontas.
Got it. Mackenzie Davis was in the show *Halt and Catch Fire*. Gotcha. Yes, the processor did used to melt through the board. I've actually never seen the TV show. I was intimately familiar with the CPU bug that it's named after long before the show was planned or released. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just never watched the show.
I didn't either.
Yeah. So I probably should, but yeah, I just haven't watched the show.
Mine was a little less intentional of not watching, but
mine wasn't intentional. It's just one of those when I came up and I saw it, I was like, oh, like the bug on the 6800 CPUs. I'm sure I was not quite alone, but very nearly alone in that response to seeing the name.
So if you were here on Saturday, you might notice some redesigns that I did to JR, but nothing too crazy. But yeah, so there's JR with the Sprocket. Sprocket's face got a little bit smooshed right after the stream ended on Saturday. I was so mad. But I think I saved it. So, yeah. Who was she in San Geneva?
The white girl out of the couple.
She seemed very... I did not recognize her. So, sorry. I'm a bad person. I guess.
Look.
Oh, yeah, she's super cute. I like that dress.
You've seen San Junipero, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that one. Okay. So I might just be priming now. I know, yeah, like, it got I had it resting like this, so that like nothing would get messed up, and then somehow it tilted and just smooshed his face. So it's a little funky looking, but I'm pretty sure you won't even be able to notice later. Yeah. So kind of killed that little bit, but that's fine. Hi. Alright. So here's what I'm going to do. There. I'm gonna take this primer. Put it right here. Okay. Now we're gonna paint JR all over. Okay, so Pocahontas, Matoaka. So we don't know a whole lot about her early life, unfortunately. Yes? How can I help you? So she is like a Disney princess, but historically, what are you doing? Historically, she would not actually have been considered a princess. There you are. Because, the tribe, the Powhatan tribe, had, matrilineal,
power transition.
Rulers, yeah.
No, the rulers were male,
Hi.
but the power flowed
Yes.
to the woman.
And so we don't know for sure who her mom was. It is believed that she would have been, she practiced a boy, I believe. But she, from what we do know, she would have been, the chief's, favorite wife, because they, practiced polygamy. I believe only men with multiple wives and not the other way. Not women with lots of husbands. I believe it was only one way. And so, like, oh my gosh, what was his full name again? Do you remember?
No.
Like, there's a lot of complicated names and stuff. Obviously. So she was in the Powhatan tribe, part of the Algonquin nation, and lived near the Potomac River. Not polyandry. Thank you, polyandry. Yeah. Historical. She grew up with people. Oh, which one was it again? Wahoo Seneca. Wahoo Seneca.
Yep.
Wahoo Seneca, but is just referred to as Powhatan. But his full actual name is Wahoo Seneca. Yeah. Okay. I said that word a lot yesterday, trying to remember it. And did I remember it? No. But it is believed that her mother's name was Pocahontas, but she was born Matoaka, which means, like, there's different accounts of what it means, but it's generally believed to be like the lily between two rivers. And we don't know exactly how her mom died, but it's believed it was in childbirth. And so she was really just like embraced as his favorite daughter. You wanna come back here? Do you wanna come here? Come here. Come on. You silly. Hi. Yeah, I know.
All three are just Smiggle.
Yep. Which is fair.
Until, yeah.
You want me to bring that over here? Will that make you happier? Oh, look, I have your toy. Okay, and I have your
Was
paint.
she guarding specifically?
I'm not sure if it's the epoxy or the paint.
I think it's the epoxy this time.
It might be. Triple cam, yeah. So, so she was given the nickname Pocahontas, which means, there's a lot of different variations on what it means. And it's generally believed to be, like, mischievous one, or, like, laughing one, or, like, some people would say that it means, like, little devil. So that kind of vibe. Unfortunately, the language is dead. It is no longer spoken anywhere. And the only record that we have of it is from the lessons that Pocahontas gave to John Smith. And we have his notes from that. And don't worry, we are going to be getting into John Smith a lot.
I did find out there are other Algonquin languages that do still exist.
Oh, cool. So just like her tribe.
Yeah, a little bit
or
larger.
Region.
Yeah, but it should be possible to use some, should be possible to tease out from that what it may have meant.
Mm. So she had, she was apparently just, like, a really, really happy child, and very, very, very smart. And she was well known for the fact that she liked to do cartwheels and somersaults a lot. And unfortunately, the main way we know this is John Smith, which feels really creepy that he was taking notes on the way that a naked 11-year-old girl was doing cartwheels and somersaults all over the place. Because the Powhatan tradition, you didn't wear clothes until you entered puberty, basically. Before that, you just kind of ran around naked. And that was just normal, and so it's, which makes me, I try not to think about that too much because of just the way that I know that the colonizing men looked at the women who did have clothes, and I don't like thinking about. Yeah. Anyway. So we don't know a whole lot. We know that she was his favorite daughter. We know that she had a very happy life. One of the things, of course, because white people came over and tried to wipe out their culture and their language called them savages, but if you look at what the Indians thought of our ancestors, they called us savages and immigrants. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm definitely going to get into because I tried to really focus on native sources and not white sources for my researching for this. So most of what I'm going to be talking about comes from native sources.
Which unfortunately means no primary sources.
Yes,
because
it's oral tradition also. But yeah, sturdy hips on that one. She could plow the fields while she isn't birthing sons. But yeah, so when Pocahontas was about 10 or 11, so Matoaka is her actual name, but in the Powhatan tradition, you didn't tell people the name that you were given at birth. That was a special thing that you held close to yourself, and it was believed that, if people knew your actual name, they might have power over you. And so she was really just known as Pocahontas generally. But her actual name is Matoaka. And yeah, so when she was, so she was about 11 when the colonizers showed up to establish Jamestown. And she was apparently super fascinated by the strange people who had showed up. All of the, they were just, I can't even imagine, exactly how they were feeling about the people who were showing up. It's definitely, they thought that they were gross, they thought they were dirty, they were fascinated by how much hair was on their faces, they couldn't understand what was going on with their skin, what was wrong with it, but some of them were genuinely like wanting to get to know the people. And she wound up learning the English language within a couple of months, which is wild, especially for an 11-year-old.
Actually, less wild for an 11-year-old than it would be for an adult.
That's true. That is true. And so she started working as kind of like a translator between the two. So something about John Smith that isn't really talked about much is how much of an asshole he was. When they landed in the quote-unquote New World, he was actually brought ashore in chains because he had tried to start a mutiny on board during the crossing and failed. So
not only was he a fucking traitor, he was a shitty one.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't
Can't
even do that
it right.
But he was the only person in the colonizers who actually had experience and knew what he was doing. You say asshole, but I hear enterprising white man. Yes, that man has a lot of confidence. That's what it is. John Smith pretty much was stalking her, and she, of course, learned fast. How do we know native sources are accurate? As we understand historical accuracy given the practice of history as recording a fact is a Western invention. So, the sources that I was going from are going from what they would call the, sacred oral histories. And so it is passed down from generation to generation. So while they don't have their written histories like we do, they still have their histories that have been passed down and are taken very, very seriously. And like they call them sacred. There are people who are storytellers or story holders. And that's what they do, is that they learn the stories of their people and pass them along. Yeah, it's super cool. There's actually a museum in downtown Manhattan called the Museum of the Native or the American Indian, something like that. I know it has the word Indian in it, which always bugs me. But inside is really cool. They have a exhibit of different native cultures from North and South America. Lots of different artifacts, lots of different artworks, lots of histories. They have a room that's interactive for kids, which is super cool. And they'll have live performances of people from different tribes who will come in and perform. This was all happening 150 years before Australia was discovered by Europeans and colonized. Yeah. Are we sure John Smith isn't related to Trump in some way? He definitely sounds like Trump. I don't think he had kids. I mean, he probably had kids that he didn't know about. So, who knows?
Also, the oral histories are actually very, very accurate because of the nature of how they were recorded, or recorded person to person.
Yeah.
They were actually extremely accurate, more so than you may initially think.
Yeah, honestly, more so than a lot of written histories, because written histories are manipulated, and I mean, obviously, oral histories can be as well, but when, we didn't have, the Bible is made up of so many different things, and it's also, monks in the Middle Ages would be scraping off pages to reuse them, or people would be translating by hand, one at a time, and so who knows how many mistranslations and everything there was, whereas this is something that was taken very seriously, really treasured, and passed along as accurately as possible, because knowing how fragile the history is, because it's all oral, I think makes you really take more care with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the accounts of what John Smith was like are pretty universally that he was very short, because he was only 5'3", and that he was extremely smelly. That was their main descriptor of him, was that he smelled extremely bad. Although, funnily enough, when Pocahontas ended up in England later, spoiler alert, she told her sister later that John Smith didn't smell too bad in England, because surrounded by all these other people who smelled just as bad. Definitely related to Trump. Their storytelling was only told to one another. They didn't ever tell outsiders. Yeah, 5'3" and smelly sounds like how How dare you, Ruffle Iron? So, yeah. So basically, the colonizers showed up and they were like, we don't understand. Like, all of the people who showed up with John Smith, like I said, they were extremely dependent on him because he was the only one who had any sort of experience. Like, they were all rich people who didn't know how to farm or, you know, like, they didn't know anything, any sort of actual survival skills. And so he was the only one really who did. And so they all really turned to him for help with that. But he still didn't know how to like farm and stuff. He just knew how to be an adventurer. So they turned to the natives for help, and the natives did help them. They would share their food with them and kind of help them survive the winter, and try and teach them how to farm. But the thing is, like, they were basically like, I mean, you're just gonna give us your food anyway, so why do we have to learn how to do it ourselves? Like, that's the mentality that wound up being formed, which I know is a really big shocker for anyone who's ever met a white person. But yeah. So there had been a lot of infighting between the different tribes of the area going before the white men showed up. And like, man, how history could have been different if that hadn't been the case. They came so close. Like, I talked about this in the Thanksgiving live streams, but like, the white people came so close to losing so many different times. Like, it is pure luck. Like, the way that it's kind of implied, at least for us, is that like, well, you know, obviously we were gonna win because we were better. That's not even remotely true. Like, it came very close to, like, at one point Jamestown only had like 30-something people in it when it started out with like almost 200.
I thought it was 105.
The original one had, I think the original one,
When they first got here, it was 105 people.
was it 105? Maybe I'm thinking of another ship.
I'm not entirely sure. The fact that you're not sure means I should go look
You
it up.
made me question it. I thought I was sure. Sounds like most rich white people, yeah. Hello, alien sock puppy. Lovely to see you. So yeah. So they were just really just like, okay, now give us the food for winter. But the thing was that a couple years in, there was a really bad famine. Just the crops were not taking, and the Powhatans were just like, we barely have enough to feed ourselves through the winter, like, and you guys were just like chilling and not doing anything during the like farming time. So no, we cannot spare anything for you. And of course they were like, oh, these lazy savages, blah blah, you know, that whole thing.
And then
White
they
people.
stole their food.
And then, yeah. And so, like, things kind of soured after that. A white colony disappear. So the colony of Roanoke, yes and no. So Roanoke was really nearby where Jamestown ended up being. And what had happened was that the guy who was like the mayor, kind of, he had to go back to England to sort out a bunch of drama, and didn't know how long it would take, and told the people behind him, like, if you wind up needing to leave, just like, you know, leave note of where you've gone, right? And when he came back, the village was completely abandoned, except for this is what most people know, that there was a word carved into a tree that said Crowtown, which was the name of a local tribe. And so everyone likes to act like it's this big mystery, like, what happened? But like, not too long later, like, people would go and see the Croton tribe, and they would see, like, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. Like, they'd been absorbed into different tribes. They didn't just, like, mysteriously disappear. Like, most likely a bunch of them died in some sort of famine or something.
They said, fuck me English.
Yeah, and they went and they just, like, joined the tribes, like, the local tribes. And so they left the note, as agreed, but they were too busy going, what could this possibly mean? And they decided that, you know, like, they landed more on, like, oh, obviously they attacked and murdered them all. Like, you know.
And they obviously had time to scratch a name into a tree while being murdered, obviously.
Yeah, because that's how that works.
Yeah, 105 originally.
105? Thank you.
And 39 crew members. Which I think they sailed back after dropping them off.
Yeah. So Pocahontas was one of the, like, main figures of the go-betweens between the tribe and the white people. And so one of the things that they decided to do to try and, like, foster good relationships between the natives and the white dudes was they had kind of like a student exchange program where one child from the Powhatan tribe was sent to be, like, raised and grow up with the white people, and one of the white people kids was sent to grow up and be raised in the native tribe. So, like, they could, like, grow up learning the customs and then kind of function as, like, go-betweens. They fell for the classic white man trap, having sex with the natives. Classic. Those silly white people. Silly butthole. Bloodspot gets it. So Pocahontas wound up becoming really close friends with the boy that wound up being sent to live with her village. His name was, I believe, Thomas Savage, which is kind of funny. And, like, the two of them, like, you know, grew up together and became incredibly close. And then one day, all of a sudden, like, they just weren't allowed to be friends anymore. And I think it was a combination.
Hey.
Uh-oh. I think it was a combination of both, like, well, you know, now you're too old to be friends since you're different genders. But also, like, tensions had been growing between the two groups. And so, like, the whole thing wasn't seen as happily as it used to be seen. He came from a long line of savages, yeah. And she wound up naming her son Thomas. And, like, we don't know for sure, like, who he was named after. But I like to think it was this guy that she grew up with and was friends with. But yeah. So, here's the thing with John Smith. Besides being short and smelly, he was also a big liar and liked to exaggerate all of his stories and everything.
I wasn't very competent in anything he did.
No, he was not.
Yeah, I see the Trump connection there.
And, like, the story of him and Pocahontas, like, first off, after it supposedly happened, he had written a letter to a friend and didn't mention it at all. So that right there kind of just shows you, like, it probably didn't happen. But then on top of that, he waited until everyone else involved was dead before, like, writing it down. And yeah, like, he wrote it down in his memoirs, which unfortunately wound up becoming, and his memoirs were the, like, complete history of Virginia. And so, like, that wound up kind of becoming, like, gospel of, like, well, here's what happened. And it wasn't, like, forgotten about, but it wasn't really, like, a big deal for a long time. Until, I know I always thought it was weird that no one thought of the other theories. I also thought it was weird that the mayor didn't really look for him. Yeah, like, he was just like, oh, they're gone. All right. The end. And then he didn't attack the tribe if he truly believed the tribe killed everyone. Yeah. Small men's complex, yep. Europe wasn't sending its best. That is exactly correct, yes. Memoirs are sexy.
Yeah, because they did, like, all the people who were competent and shit, they wanted home in England.
Yeah.
They sent over the people, the dregs.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the dregs, it was, like, rich idiots who were just like, well, obviously there's just going to be gold everywhere that I could just go and pick up and become richer.
Well, but the thing is like, the rich idiots knew better. It was the poor idiots the rich idiots hired.
But there were also rich idiots.
Not true.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like...
But still also not the best people.
Yes.
Because they were the idiots.
Yes. But like in like his memoirs, like there's another story of a Turkish princess saving him in exactly the same way that Pocahontas supposedly did, and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, when all of this supposedly happened, Pocahontas was 11, and John Smith was like 28, 29. So super gross if it did happen, which it did not. But like laying aside the fact that it definitely didn't happen, if it had, it would have been disgusting.
Yeah. According to John Smith is a pedophile.
Yeah.
So our options are to believe John Smith is a pedophile because he says so, or to think he's a liar. And quite frankly, the fact that we're all saying he's a liar is a very undeserved kindness.
Yeah. 17th century equivalent of small business tyrants. Yeah. Because the rich didn't trust the idiots completely. Yep, pretty much. Also, side note, so you know Jamestown is named after King James, right? The state of Virginia is named after Queen Elizabeth because she was a virgin. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Why couldn't you have called it, like, Elizabethia? Why does it have to be Virginia? Like, why are we so focused on virgin? Like, that's creepy and weird and gross.
And also, she probably wasn't actually a virgin. She probably got laid, like, all the fucking time. She was the goddamn queen. She could just tell people, you didn't see this.
I don't know what I believe, honestly, with that. I don't know if I believe that she was. I go back and forth on it. Yeah. Can you help me find the soap? I know it's Slagsylvania. So yeah, the early winters were really, really, really bad in Jamestown. There is evidence of cannibalism, for example. Like, they should not have survived, and it's kind of a bummer that they did. Didn't have the same ring to it.
Well, it's because you didn't include the capital of Slagsylvania. It's Pound Town, Slagsylvania.
Either way, we can all agree that Queen Victoria was history's first asexual.
Yeah, like clearly
I don't
not.
know.
I mean, clearly not. Obviously, that's obviously a joke.
Well, no, because like, yeah, she had 13 kids exactly. Like, her and Albert like fucked, definitely. So I don't know that. Why are we naming our states after European royals when our ancestors wanted nothing to do with Europe? Because that was before they wanted nothing to do with Europe. This was the first people who came over, and so they were the people who were being sent over by the king and queen, etc. Like, so later on, like, fast forward 150 years or so, that's when they wanted nothing. Oh my gosh, Armac. 13 virgin births. Yeah. So yeah, so Pocahontas was going back and forth between the two a lot.
That is true. I think I've driven through it. I think I've driven through that.
I've definitely seen it on a map.
Let me see where it is.
There's a butt town. So yeah, so she was just like.
Oh no, I haven't.
A very common sight.
Yeah, but not near there.
Like, she was just always over at Jamestown, like, bringing over food, just hanging out. Like, people knew her by sight. And very much, like, they all got along, you know? It wasn't until later when dudes fucked everything up. But...
Hold on, we have an issue.
Uh-oh. Naming your colony Jamestown curries favor with the king in hopes of royal funding, no doubt. Yeah, basically. There's a neighborhood in Queens called Astoria, and a lot of people just like assume that it's because the Astors owned it, because lots of stuff here is named after the Astor family, because they owned like all of the city for a while, like the Waldorf Astoria, for example. Anyway, they one of the ways that I first knew of them is that John Jacob Astor died on the Titanic. But yeah, so the town Astoria, it was like a village across from New York City back when Queens was a completely separate thing. And they decided to name themselves Astoria, hoping that the Astors would give them a bunch of money because they flattered them by naming their village after them. And like the Astors were kind of like, oh, that's so cute, and gave them like a couple bucks, you know, like a fair amount of money, but not nearly as much as the people were clearly hoping for. But anyway, that's a little side story. Okay, I thought this was after the Revolution. What besides Jamestown? No, this was like the very beginning. This was pre-Mayflower. This was like 20 years before the Mayflower. You know me, Constance lives in Astoria. Astoria is nice. Astoria is the first place that I went to in New York City that was outside of Manhattan. So it was my first time kind of experiencing the rest of New York City. Not doxing. In defense of the Astors, poor people are adorable. With their tiny hands and big teeth. So yeah, so Pocahontas was always coming over. And I'm trying to remember exactly which order things happen in, because there's a lot that happens like in quick succession, because Pocahontas dies when she's only 21 or 22. So a lot happens in a very little amount of time. Spoiler alert, she dies. I found something you'll like too. Life in the 1800s YouTube was watching this 1930s colorized video of this retiree born in 1860 talk about his jobs in the 1880s. Ooh, that sounds super cool. Can you send me a whisper with the link, Andrew? I would totally be interested in watching that. So
I'm actually just trying to pet you.
So yeah, so Pocahontas was teaching John Smith the actual language. So like they did interact. It wasn't like she was just like this random girl in the village that he randomly was like, and this happened later on. Like they did have like some sort of
interpersonal relationship.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, just send it in a whisper, because I don't know if it'll go through if you send it in the chat. I bet there was a lot of kids these days. There always are. Every generation has a kids these days. Okay. So Pocahontas gets older, right? Obviously, because that's how time works.
So time works.
Oh.
You're fine.
Get up, Melon. I said back in my day yesterday, like semi-ironically. Do you remember why I said that?
No.
I can't remember now. But it was funny. I like saying old people things. So yeah, so Pocahontas wound up marrying a man in the village named Kocoum, who is in the Disney movie very unfairly represented. The fact that he wasn't like a big deal, and the fact that he wasn't a big deal implies that it was a love match, like that they got married for love. And they were, like, by all accounts, like, happily married. They had a kid. And then Again, I'm trying to remember the exact order. Or are we on the stream? Did you introduce the stream? I missed it. Oh, I did not. I have not been introducing for a while. I mostly just introduce when we get raided. How do you whisper? If you click on my name, it'll say send whisper. There we go. And then you can just send the link there. So yeah, so okay, I think I'm gonna be fast forwarding a little bit here, but I'll go back if I remember something in the middle there. So things were getting really bad between the natives and the colonizers, and they decided that they needed to get some sort of leverage over Powhatan, who was like winning, like he was just kicking their ass. And so they were like, okay, like we need leverage. We need leverage both to get him to stop winning and also to give us food. Like we want them to keep giving us food. Very Bug's Life, if you want to look at it that way. So we don't know exactly how it went down, but I'm gonna go with the version that I got from multiple native sources. Although like different, like they all have different versions of saying it, so who knows exactly what happened. But basically they decided that they needed to kidnap Pocahontas, and they needed her for leverage because she was Powhatan's favorite daughter. And they were like, if we kidnap his favorite daughter, then, you know, he'll have to give us food and stuff. So what they did was they got the chief of another local tribe who was basically Pocahontas's either uncle or cousin and his wife to invite her to join them like to go on board one of the English ships for a fancy meal to like honor the chief and his wife. And she was like, I don't really want to go without you there, like, you know, like I want another woman or what, you know. And most of the native sources say that they were like blackmailed into doing this, and like did not have a choice in the matter. And what happened was after the meal, they were getting ready to get off the ship and go back on shore, and they wouldn't let Pocahontas get off the ship. They let the chief and his wife get off the ship, and apparently to make it look like they had been like colluding with them, they like threw them like a brass kettle pot and were like, here, thanks for helping, or thanks for, you know, like playing along and helping us get her or whatever. So Pocahontas thought that she'd been betrayed by these family members, even though it looks like it was blackmail. And honestly, I'm gonna trust the native accounts, not the white people accounts. Grim her as well, if you do that right now. So they basically kidnapped Pocahontas, and they had her as a prisoner on board the ship for almost a year. I think it was like 9 or 10 months. And like, again, different versions of what happened, based on whether you're paying attention to the natives or the colonizers. They say, you know, like they treated her like royalty because she was, in their eyes, royalty. And, you know, like, yeah, she was a prisoner, but like they took care of her, you know. Whereas when she was allowed a visit with one of her sisters, she confided with her sister, content warning for what I'm about to say. She confided with her sister that she had been just repeatedly raped and abused like the entire time that she was on the ship, and that she was afraid that she was pregnant. And it wasn't only like physical abuse like that; it was also psychological abuse. Like for whatever reason, like the negotiations with Powhatan were just not working, and so. But the way that they decided to tell her about that was by saying, like, your father doesn't love you. He's abandoned you and left you to us forever because he just doesn't care and you're all alone. And, you know, like, basically just breaking her down psychologically. And the only way that she was able to get out of this was by getting married to one of the colonizers. So let's have a fancy dinner. Pocahontas feels kind of rapey if you ask me. Yeah, unfortunately. White people called it a negotiation tactic, but actually it was just plain date rape and kidnapping. Yep, pretty much. Spicy moods are fun.
It was basically a bunch of like, ha! It was a trick all along! We knew!
Yeah.
We know!
Yeah, you're not as sly as you think you are. I just realized that I don't have to actually paint her face. Her face is fine. So, okay, I also am not totally sure on what John Rolfe's motivations were. Like, he said he fell in love with her, but I don't think that that's the case. Just based on context clues, I don't think that's the case. I mean, who knows? Maybe he thought it was love and he just didn't know what love actually is. Because he wasn't born in the 80s and did not know the I Want to Know What Love Is song. Otherwise he would have known. But yeah. So, however it winds up going down, she winds up agreeing to marry him. And love is when I don't let you leave the ship so I can get what I want. Yep. Love means kidnapping. So John Rolfe had been, he had come over with his wife and daughter, who I believe was born on the journey over from England to Bermuda. And I believe actually his daughter was born on Bermuda. Either way, he actually wound up naming his daughter Bermuda, which I think is, I kind of liked it. But both so I think he had two daughters and his wife. So Bermuda survived, and then his wife and the other daughter died after like their ship got wrecked. And so when he arrived in Jamestown, he was single. So, you know, exciting. Super romantic, yep. And, so yeah, so John Rolfe had come over to the New World, wanting to become a tobacco farmer. And the colonists had just had no luck with tobacco farming. They didn't know why. It wasn't working for them. And the natives had lots of tobacco. Their tobacco was different than European tobacco, though, because of just the way that it was grown. They the native tobacco was more bitter, and it was more used in like ceremonies and such, whereas the European tobacco was sweeter. And the land was just completely unfamiliar to them, and so they just had a lot of trouble making anything actually grow. And Ralph wound up being the first one to successfully grow tobacco at all, but he was very unhappy with the quality. And Pocahontas was related to basically like the dude in charge of the tobacco farming. And so John was like, if I marry her, then I will have access to the farming recipe.
Knowledge.
Yeah, like I'll know the secrets. So I very much don't think it was a marriage of love on either side. I think that Pocahontas was desperate and he was like her ticket out. And I think that he was greedy. So in order to do this, Pocahontas had to just give up like her entire native life. They had killed Kocoum when, like, I think that he had tried to rescue Pocahontas at some point from the ship and had been killed in the attempt. And she had basically left their son with the women of the village, like, to take care of him. And it's believed that if she hadn't done that, that he would have also been killed. And we actually don't know exactly what winds up happening to the son. But it is believed that he, like, you know, grew to adulthood and got married and everything. I think she was desperate too. Yeah. Oh, she was definitely desperate. Like, she wanted to stop being in the situation she was in. And who can really blame her? Alright, I guess I am painting the face. And yeah, so in order to get married, she had to convert to Christianity. She had to change her name to a Christian name. There were all these like hoops that she had to jump through in order to actually go through with it. And of course, if you listen to the white people version of the story, it's that she fell in love with the Christian. Like, there's never any mention of her being kidnapped. It's that while talking with the settlers, she fell in love with Christianity and wanted to convert. You know.
Yeah.
And like, just to kind of like prove how little they cared for her or actually knew her, or like her culture, it wasn't until like her baptism when they were like, you know, like, your name, you were born Pocahontas. She's like, no, I wasn't. Like, that's not my name. And I had to tell them what her actual name was, which was very taboo. So I can't imagine what that must have felt like for her. But I think that says a lot about her, that even though she most likely was extremely unwilling in this, she was still honest enough that, like, she didn't want to be doing it under a lie, you know? But yeah, so romance. So they did wind up having a son, but it is believed that he was conceived of the rape, not of John. And like I said, she named him Thomas, and I like to think it was after her childhood friend. And so they went off to England, and there she was, you know, made to dress in European style. She met the king and queen. She was basically like paraded around in her European clothes and style. Her new name is Rebecca. She's no longer Pocahontas. She is now Rebecca Rolfe. And yeah, she basically just had to like completely give up her entire identity.
Something. That's marriage.
Yeah. There we go. I was totally just thinking that, like, Rebecca Rolfe. But yeah, so so she's in England, you know, like, making the best of the time that she has there. Like, she's definitely not a happy person, but, you know, she's definitely a very strong person and a survivor. And one of the reasons why it's believed that Thomas was not John's son is that John had, like, nothing to do with him at all. Like, he did not care about him. Like, after she died, he left to go back to Virginia and never saw his son again. Like, I mean, to be fair, he died a couple years later in Virginia, but still, like, you just left your son there, and, like, in his will, he gave most of the stuff to his daughter and not his son, which is very weird. Sounds like a very American thing to do, yeah. Yeah. What you doing? What you doing? But yeah, so it seemed like she made the best of the life over there, and was doing a really good job. Like, she was definitely considered, like, a success. And, like, a perfect example of how, like, the savages can be tamed and, civilized, etc., etc. You know, the usual. And yeah, look at the Shmeesh. She's so cute. I hope you also enjoy getting to see the sushi that I'm going to be eating later. It's my tamago. And yeah, so I honestly don't know how happy or unhappy their marriage was. We don't really have any accounts on that. But so something I did skip over was when I fast forwarded to, like, Pocahontas got older. So in between there, something happened. We don't know exactly what. There's different accounts. The most common one with the white people versions is that there was a gunpowder accident. But with the native versions, I was seeing more that, like, there was some sort of, like, battle. And either way, John Smith got injured. She had no choice, though. Either she adapted or who knows what would have happened. Yeah, totally. But, like, that still takes strength to adapt to something like that. You know, like, you could just give up. But yeah, so either way he got injured, he was injured, and it had something to do with gunpowder. And he had to go back to England, which is where the Disney movie ends. And full disclosure, I actually love the Disney movie. If you remember me talking about how the O.J. Simpson murders happened on my 7th birthday, and then my 7th birthday party was interrupted by the Bronco chase, that was my birthday party. Had been going to see the movie Pocahontas, because being born in June and growing up in the 90s meant that every year on my birthday, Disney was releasing a new animated movie. So, like, all of the Disney Renaissance movies were my birthday parties. And so we went to go see Pocahontas, and then we went to, like, the park and had, like, cake and stuff. So now you know the connection between Pocahontas and O.J. Simpson. You're welcome. So he died. So word came back that he had died on the journey back to England. Like, he died in the crossing. Is she naked? Are you naked on the stream? Oh, a naked puppy! A naked puppy!
Which seems to have worked fairly well in calming her down, so she's not trying to bite me.
And so, yeah. So, that was, you know, what I'm finding out, and I sort of blame you. What are you finding out? What did I do? That's not for you, that's for me. You're very cute, though. And naked. So while she was in England, she discovered that John Smith had not died because she ran into John Smith. And in his memoirs, he says that when she saw him, she was so overcome with emotion that she had to turn her face away from him. Whereas in all the other accounts, she was furious when she saw him. and she yelled at him for betraying her people and like not helping them the way that he had promised that he would help. And like she was just furious with him and didn't want anything to do with him. But you know, to him, that's being so in love that you're taken over by passion, I guess.
Was there a history between him and Rolf?
Not that I'm aware of. They came over on different ships and everything, so I don't think that there was any sort of crossover.
I'm just curious.
Besides
like,
living in Jamestown together at some point.
Even if it's just that, it's entirely believable that like he saw Rolf as just like a competitor, and like everyone likes him more than they like me. So I'm going to tell everyone that his wife actually loved me more.
Not that I'm aware of, but it's not impossible.
And it does track with his personality.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
I still want to know what it is that Paige is finding out.
Yeah, I don't know.
And blames you for.
I don't know. What did I do? A lot of murders that have been happening recently are either happening on my birthday or the day before or after. People go missing on my birthday is December 9th, the new date. Yeah, June 12th is passé. It's all December 9th now. I think the last June 12th thing was Pulse. I think that was enough. That was when the universe was like, okay, what are we moving on to? And picked December 9th. Look at how ridiculous she looks. Oh my god. I am so obsessed with this dog. Look at her. Look at her. What is that face? What is that face? But yeah, so she wanted very much to go back to Virginia. Like that was, you know, where her life was, where her family was. And at this point, so when she was kidnapped, she was about 16. And so at this point, she's like 20, 21. And she wants to go back to Virginia, and so finally they start making plans for her to make the crossing with her son and her husband to go back. And like they leave London and things are going really well, and they're like, you know, sailing down the Thames to get to the ocean. And like there's lots of different versions of this story. And once again, I'm gonna go with the native version.
Because there were natives there in London with her.
Yes. Yeah, so young. It's ridiculous. I don't have any serial killers born on your birthday that you know of, but plenty are Sagittarius. So yeah, so she's 20 when they start making the plans, 20, 21 when they start making the plans to go back, and then 21, 22. We don't know exactly when she was born, which is why we don't know exactly how old she was. When they are actually making the journey. So they're sailing down the river, and according to the native account, she was like in high spirits, really happy, just like blooming with just excitement of finally being able to go back. The only serial killers we know about are the ones that get caught. Yep. Confirmation bias.
Well, yeah. We figured we looked into it, but as Raw Iron Chef says, we only know about the ones that get caught. Maybe there's one active right now that was born December 9th and just hasn't been caught because we don't know his name.
There are at least 3 on the East Coast right now. So, you never know. I'm sure there's a bunch in California because there always are at any given time. But is Rolf Iron Chef a Rolf? Rolf Iron Chef. I like it. Oh, also a butt descendant. Butt descendant. So yeah, so according to the white people version is that on the journey she got sick. With like tuberculosis or something like that. Like that's what they say. Whereas the native version, because she had native people with her there, was what's on June 12th? I'm curious. Like I know about the murders. What about the births? Oh, no one. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not that I'm aware of. There are no serial killers on my birthday that we know of. That's because they do all the murdering then, not the mourning then. Alaska, another hotspot. Yeah, definitely. Bless you. So, according to the native account, she was just happy, blooming health, etc., etc., etc. Just talking about how excited she was to go back. And then they sat down to dinner one night, and then after dinner, she started convulsing and throwing up and stuff. Both her and her son. Tuberculosis on a ship, so basically they needed an excuse to confine her to her cabin. Oh, if only that's the way that they had gone with it. So she got extremely sick extremely quickly, and they had to pull over. Like, they had to pull the ship over to the side of the Thames. And they were in, can you look up where Pocahontas died? I can't remember the name of the place in England. It's blanking. Gravesend. There you go. So yeah, so she only made it to Gravesend, which is not that far from London. And it's in Kent. Was she pregnant at this time? No. So her son had been born. Her son was a couple years old at this time. He would have been probably 5 or 6, I think. And because he was born when she was still in the New World, I believe. Because he's, we believe, the product of all of the rapes that she endured while a prisoner on the ship. We don't know that for sure, but that's what the belief is. And she and John Rolfe got married in Virginia as well. So her son would have been born in Virginia because they got married in Virginia and then crossed over with him. And Rolfe's daughter, Bermuda. So food safety in London was abysmal during this period. Yeah, so...
Everything in London was abysmal during that period.
Yeah. So they brought her to her cabin, and she was very sick. So was her son. And her son wound up getting better, and she did not. And her last words were something along the lines of, like, if I must die, so be it, as long as the child lives, or something like that. So the native oral tradition is that she was poisoned. That she and her son were both poisoned, but he survived it, and she did not. And honestly, like, it makes a lot more sense than the white people version, I'm not gonna lie. Was Typhoid Mary was not the cook on the ship. No, she was 200 years later. England, in large part because the underlying social stratification and the gatekeeping of useful knowledge was a shithole. Yeah, definitely. Especially because, like, the native cultures at the time were very focused on cleanliness. And so that's why they were so appalled with, like, how John Smith stank. Because they were very used to, being clean and being surrounded with clean people. And all of a sudden, here come these people with no color on their skin and hair on their faces, and they smell bad, and they're short. Pull the ship over.
They're pale as death, so they're obviously already sick.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Pull the ship, yeah. I love Typhoid Mary as well. I'm kind of a big fan of that. Could have been so many diseases, though, back then. And that's why we don't know. We don't know for sure. The native oral tradition is that she was poisoned because of how suspicious it was and the time of it, and the fact that it was only her and her son who got sick and not anyone else at the table. But again, it could have been something else completely. We just have no way of knowing.
Also, okay, England, early 1600s was... Yeah. Just, I'd like you to tell me exactly what the difference is in the early 1600s in England between cooking and food poisoning.
That's fair. Autocorrect should be a curse word. So she died there in Gravesend, and they buried her there, which I think is just awful. Like, you were making the crossing anyway, just take her home. Let her be buried in Virginia with her people.
The first time they went to Jamestown, it took them 4 months to cross the ocean.
That's true. That is true.
And so, like, 4 months with a corpse on board in the heat.
That's true.
Maybe not the best idea.
Yeah. Ooh, that is something that I forgot to mention with the Lizzie Borden live stream, was that not only they did the initial autopsies in the dining room, and then brought the body, basically like they removed the stomachs, and then they brought the bodies over to the morgue, and then just had them sit there for like a week in the heat. No refrigeration or anything. And so when they finally got around to doing the rest of the autopsy, most of the evidence was decomposed. But anyway, this is not about Lizzie Borden. This is about Pocahontas. So she was buried in a church graveyard in Gravesend. And surgeries and autopsies were conducted without hand washing still at this time. At this time, I don't think that they did autopsies. I don't think that was a thing. But this is the early 17th century.
But they still would have gone from like fishing around in some infected person's guts to being like, okay, I guess I can't help you, and just go on to the next person, no washing your hands. So,
yeah.
Pretty. Like, they would go from killing one patient to killing the next one with the same juices on their hands.
Juices? Gross. But yeah. So they buried her there, and between then and now have lost that grave. So we don't know where she's buried. There is a memorial statue, like, in the approximate location. And then there's a memorial statue in Jamestown as well. But, yeah, like, I hate that ending so much. Like, all she wanted was to go home and be with her people again. And instead, this happened. And then on top of that, just to add insult to injury, her name has become this, like, insult to Native women. Like, being called Pocahontas is, like, an insult. Which I think, like, look at Trump and Elizabeth Warren. You know?
Yeah.
Doctors did autopsies in the morning, and they would go deliver a baby and couldn't figure out why the mothers kept dying. Yeah.
And the kids.
Mm-hmm. I read she was buried under a church, but the church burnt down. That is possible. I know that I know what church she was buried at, and I know that they now no longer know where her grave is. That would make sense if that is what happened.
Which would also make sense as to why they would lose the records. The records would have been in the church.
Yeah.
Totally. So it wouldn't have been laziness. It would have been like, oh shit.
Yeah. But yeah, and then, like, to go through all that in that short amount of time, and then to have, your memory, like, become an insult and a wildly historically inaccurate Disney movie. Like, could have just thrown her overboard, which would have been worse. Yeah, that would have been a burial at sea, definitely. But, like,
at least she... I don't know if throwing her overboard would have been worse. At least she wouldn't have been buried in fucking England.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, she was not happy in England.
Yeah.
She wanted to go back so bad. My source was Wikipedia. The Australian podcast that I love, they have a running joke about how they found this amazing source, and it'll be like, so like whatever the topic is. So like last week they talked about Joan of Arc, so they're like, I believe it's a French medieval history website, you know, and they'll be like, it's called, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, wikipedia.org. And yeah, so now that's what I think about whenever I see Wikipedia. But yeah, so that's the story of Pocahontas. And then she became a Disney movie. She became a bunch of movies before that. And unfortunately, most of her legacy is tied to a smelly short man that she probably just tolerated.
When she
a
wasn't
smelly
yelling
short
at him.
old man.
When she wasn't yelling at him.
Yeah. Who she actively disliked as an adult. But, maybe the times would have burnt down. Burning down a river would be impressive.
Talk to Ohio. Ohio once burnt down a river. I'm not kidding, they set a river on fire.
I mean, I believe you. But yeah, that's that's the sad story of Pocahontas. Her son is you're a descendant of her son. That's so cool. Like yeah, so she still has descendants. Probably from both children that she had. Although you know it's obviously significantly more difficult to trace to trace the native roots. But what's a lake?
What's that?
Oh, what the Cuyahoga River?
Cuyahoga River. A lot of people have said that it's Lake Erie that was caught fire, but it was actually the river right up to Lake Erie, not the actual lake itself. Although the lake probably could have caught fire too.
Yeah.
It's like that river caught fire a bunch of times.
The fire went up to 5 stories high and lasted 20 minutes. That's wild. That's a big one.
Which one? Was that the 1969 one?
Scroll up.
Oh, and it caught fire last year.
Sweet.
Like,
Ricky, how did you find out that you were descended from her son? I'm curious. Like, is that just something that, like, your family knew? Or did you find out? Because that's pretty cool. I am quite certain I have no native ancestry whatsoever.
I mean, statistically speaking, there's probably a percent or two in there somewhere way back.
No, because only one of my grandparents was born here.
Okay.
And his ancestor before that arrived in the early 19th century, I think.
In Argentina?
No, in America.
What about
So
Argentina?
I didn't have any ancestors in America until the mid-late 19th century, I believe.
But what about
early
in
19th
Argentina?
Oh, so you mean like South American? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably in there, actually.
Yeah,
South American natives would probably be in there.
Yeah, you have to realize
because I think that there's Peruvian.
The distinction between South and North America as different continents is very much like not a worldwide thing.
Yeah, that's true. Like, well, the museum that I was talking about in downtown Manhattan, like, it's North and South America.
Yeah.
That they cover. My great-grandmother had a massive family tree that was above her fireplace. Oh, that's so cool. My grandpa was really into the genealogy stuff, and I did not appreciate it until long after he had died. And I'm bummed about that, because I got really into it, and it would have been really cool to be able to share that with him. She was on there, and so were William Henry Harrison and Benjamin Harrison. That's really cool. Do you have any pictures of that family tree? Because if you do, I would really like you to send me a picture, because that sounds rad AF. Yeah, for me, I mostly did stuff online with work that my aunt had done, starting from the work that my grandpa had done. So I had 2 people's work to, like, start with. Which was wildly helpful. So I got really far back on my paternal side, whereas my maternal side, I had no one's work to start out with, and it's all in Spanish. So Pocahontas was on there, but my great-great-grandmother's mother was listed as wife. Oof. Brutal. My stepdad traced his ancestry to the second wave of Jamestown colonizers. Ooh. I hate to say it, but those are the bad ones, alien sock puppy. The second wave, those were the really bad ones who did all the genociding. So, sorry. I'm sure there were some nice ones on there.
Yeah.
But the second wave is not the one that you want to be a part of. Sorry. I found a John Smith on my family tree, and it was in the, like, approximately right time. And I got really panicked, and then I saw that he had, like, not gone to America. He was just in England. So, thank goodness. Margarita Navarro. That's a beautiful name. Doesn't surprise you. Is it because, like, did you not like your stepdad? Is that why? Yeah, the first wave of Jamestown, I'm thinking Mayflower, but that also applies with Jamestown, I think. With Jamestown, I don't think the first one was any good either. I think Jamestown, they were both shitty. The second wave was just shittier. Whereas the Mayflower, the first wave was actually decent people who, like, had good intentions, and then the second wave was not.
Semi-decent people.
Yeah.
Like, not as awful people.
All white men are named John Smith, pretty much. Yeah, that's true. We've all got some bad dudes, most likely, in our family tree. I feel like it's unavoidable. I'm descended from King John the First, who's literally the bad guy in Robin Hood. So, that's cool. Did Corn Pop ever have kids? Stepdad is fine as... Oh, but his family. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's why Alien Sock Puppet had to change his name to Puppies, because everyone loves puppies. Let's see, the other things that I had on my family tree that I found that were interesting. I have one ancestor who was a deacon in Plymouth during the Salem witch trials. I have a couple Union Civil War people. And then I've mentioned a bunch of times about King James I and Eleanor of Aquitaine, but then also my great times 17 grandfather was first cousins with Catherine Howard, who's the 5th wife of Henry VIII, and she's that one. No, that one. I'm related to the pink one. The Magna Carta. Yep, that's him. Robin Hood bad guy and the Magna Carta. That's his legacy. And
Signed in 1215.
Yes.
I don't know why. That is one of the few dates that is in my brain hard. Like, it's hard and fast stuck there.
Yeah.
Magna Carta, 1215!
That's weird. I don't know why that would be a thing.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, so my great time 17 grandfather was first cousins with Catherine Howard and also Thomas Culpeper, who was executed along with her because they were lovers. And that's the reason. The reason that I found that out is because I found the name Culpeper in my family tree, and I was like, wait, what? And so I just like expanded until I could find Thomas. Hello, Julian. Welcome. I'm for however long you've been lurking. The first I've been able to trace my family back is on my maternal side. My great-great-grandmother Sarah was born in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1896. Oh, that's... So North Carolina, 1896. I'm curious why it starts with her. I mean, I'm guessing it has to do with Civil War and such. But I'm always really curious with people's genealogy. Like, I always find that fascinating. Especially genealogy that is really closely linked to America, because I do not have that. Because in civics class they try to trace American democracy back through European decentralization. Yeah. Battle of Hastings, 1066. Do Scientologists include Xenu in their family tree? Ooh, good question. When I used to go and see improv shows at Upright Citizens Brigade in LA, all the time before I moved here. It's directly across the street from like the big Scientology Celebrity Center in LA. Ah! Oh, thank you for the bits, Willie Gus. Thank you so much. I'm not used to sound effects. They always startle me. Yeah, her grandparents would have been slaves. Yeah. Yeah. Her parents would have been the generation of newly. Okay, so her parents would have been. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. It's interesting that it starts with her instead of her parents. I don't know. I get really bogged down in like details of like that would have been someone's story. Like, why did it start with her? You know, like what was the thing in her story that got that to, you know? Does that make sense? And that's with everyone. 19-year-olds swear they fucking know everything. Oh, Jess, is Kendrick doing something bad? I always thought it was kind of funny because provenance apparently legitimizes the value of both art and the electoral process. And sports. When you pray to Jesus before the game, he helps you win because that's what he cares about.
Yeah, in terms of 19-year-olds, they swear they fucking know everything. The biggest problem is when they actually do know.
Yeah.
And like, shut up! I know you're right.
According to the French journal Le Wikipédia, in the lore of the Church of Scientology, Xenu, also called Zimu, was the dictator of the Galactic Confederacy who brought billions of people to Earth in DC-8 like spacecraft 75 million years ago, played fabulously by John Travolta, stacked them around volcanoes and killed them with hydrogen bombs. Yep.
No, that's
Wasn't he? Wasn't that him? He was
you,
Battlefield Earth.
yeah, different part of the timeline.
I see. Okay. I saw it once when it like first came out, and I don't remember
so
it.
incredibly bad. We have to watch it.
Most of what I remember is my
amazing.
dad laughing.
Oh yeah,
That's all I remember.
It's amazing.
My mother's and father's families both trace back to colonial times. English for my dad, French for my mother. Cool. The English and French colonization of what became the United States is really interesting, like that parallel history. Things like it's why like Kansas and Arkansas are pronounced differently, because the English colonizers met it was one tribe, and the English colonizers met them in one area and called that area Kansas, and the French met them in another area and called that area Arkansas. So if you've ever wondered why those aren't pronounced the same way, that's why. It starts with Sarah because that's the furthest back my 69-year-old grandmother can remember. There are little to no records of anything tangible to mark their existence, very, very sadly. Yeah, that's one of the things, like, whenever I find out that, like, one of my Black friends has traced their genealogy to, like, a state, from then on, whenever I see pictures of people from that state, I always kind of wonder, like, I wonder if that's my friend's ancestors or whatever, you know, like, because there's no documentation, so all you can do is kind of imagine and wonder. And yeah, I get really, like, lost in old photos sometimes, especially, like, group photos. I get very pulled in by the different emotions and everything of all the people. Oh, can you scroll up on the chat just a little bit, please? There you go. Battlefield Earth did inspire... the movie inspired Scientology. Yep.
The other way. Actually, Scientology has been around for almost 30 years.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Look at Potomac Elbow. He had a bet going with Kurt Vonnegut to see who could create a religion first. Kurt Vonnegut wrote Cat's Cradle, which has a pseudo-Buddhist doomsday cult called Jingoism.
No, it's not called Jingoism. It's hold on. Now the wrong word's been introduced. I have to think to pull the right one out. What's the name of it?
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm reading Jess's thing.
Yeah.
I know it keeps down fevers and helps him cough less, so let's say instead of 100 times coughing, he will cough 50 times, saving his ribs from possible bruising and pulled strained muscles while he swears up and fucking down they don't help with COVID. Yeah. That sucks. It sucks all around. Like, that's miserable for both of you. I'm so sorry.
Baconanism.
Hey everybody. Hello, High Anxiety Dragon Girl. Been listening, doing laundry and changing sheets. Love looking at family history. Because I love history in general, so I was kind of like, well, I should know my own history. Like, where do I come from? Baconanism? Baconanism.
Yeah, although I actually did remember about the exact same second that Rolf Chef typed it in.
I love drunk history.
Although I didn't think it was Vonnegut. I think it was someone else.
So he stopped taking it, and suddenly his fever is up over 100, and he coughs harder and more, and blowing his nose more, and his headache is back. Aw, he hasn't had a headache in 3 days. Poor kid. That sounds so miserable for both of you. I hope that you are staying safe yourself. Like, I know it's hard to take care of your child and stay safe.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
I said hello. Yeah, that's awful. He probably did you say like he probably caught it at prom? Or no, you said he got it from his girlfriend. It sucks for everyone. We've got a naked dog. We've got a naked dog. very cute. And in his room yelling at me about how it doesn't help. Oh, poor kid. That sounds miserable. I hope he gets better soon. L. Ron Hubbard and Isaac Asimov. Asimov? How do you pronounce it? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I don't think it's Asimov either. Neither one of those makes sense. Because Asimov. Oh, did you see the
This is from Julian. Julian gives you all the love because you're so cute and good. You're so good. Yes, you are.
The timeline
and
doesn't.
naked.
The timeline doesn't make sense for Vonnegut because it would have been right after World War II because Scientology was started in '53, so 5 years after World War II. Well, 8 years after, about 5 years after World War II. Little young for Vonnegut. Vonnegut was obviously alive because he was there during the firebombing of Dresden, but he would not have been famous and well known enough to have known L. Ron Hubbard, who was already a well-established sci-fi author by the time.
Gotcha.
Asimov would have been around at the right time and well known enough at the right time, but he would have not been interested by the idea of starting a new religion. That would have been like, oh, yeah, of course you can do that. That's fucking easy.
It was Heinlein and Vonnegut? Hubbard said that the real money was in religion, and so the three writers made a bet to see who could invent the most profitable one.
You're going to have to provide me a source to say it was Vonnegut, because Vonnegut would have been too young and not well known enough to have hung out with Heinlein and Hubbard. Yeah. I severely doubt that Vonnegut. Yeah, because the other thing, Cat's Cradle would have been written far, far long after.
It was a myth. One common myth claims that L. Ron Hubbard started Scientology on a bet with Kurt Vonnegut. In fact, Hubbard established Scientology in 1952 as an alternative to psychotherapy. The religion uses the techniques Hubbard describes in his 1950 book. Blah, blah. He later characterized the religion as an applied religious philosophy. According to one source, it was a myth. Interesting.
Yeah, Cat's Cradle was written a decade after the establishment of Scientology, so it was already an established religion by the time Vonnegut would have even thought to write a book. The timing just wouldn't work out.
He came in the living room, no mask, sat down about a foot of me, and started eating his dinner. Ugh! I fucking ran out of the room not breathing. He did it on purpose. Oh no. That is so frustrating. Like, you guys, you both need like a break. And that's impossible to do in like the current situation. That's awful. I'm so sorry. I wish there was an easy solution.
And Kurt Vonnegut's first book was published 2 years after Hubbard had published Dianetics. So Hubbard had already started to establish Scientology before Vonnegut had ever written a book.
Well, so I was going to say something and then got derailed by this discussion. And the thing that I was going to say was that I haven't decided what to talk about on Thursday yet. Should I talk about Scientology? Why are you making that face? I don't like it.
That's a fun one.
I don't know if I have enough time to do like the full deep dive I would want to, but I could start on Thursday at least.
Let's talk about that a little bit after the stream's over.
Well, because if it's not going to be that, then I would want to be able to vote on what to talk about.
Let's vote on other options and we can talk about,
I think the history of Scientology is fascinating. It is, like, I've looked into it and, like, listened to stuff about it. It's definitely interesting. But, yeah, it is a really big rabbit hole, and I don't know if I have enough time to do as much research as I would want to. He was mad because I kept getting on him to eat dinner and get off the Xbox. Finally, I blocked the Xbox from accessing the Wi-Fi. That's what you gotta do. Like, yeah. Do a series on weird American religions. Oh, I will never end. What about John Bonet? So my thought was to do John Bonet and Casey Anthony on the same week. Like just 2 different child things. But I do want to do at least another week of not true crime. Just because I don't want to get, like, because I could see myself getting pulled into doing, like, just true crime, and I really want to do, like, history. Sounds like a 2-night subject, yeah. Maybe next week, a deep dive on COINTELPRO and MK Ultra would be fun.
Yes.
That would be interesting. I'd like to know the basics. Watch Clear Something, which was great.
That's about Scientology.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to think. Maybe I can do Scientology next week.
Tower of London?
I'm doing math in my head. Tower of London, drug war.
So one joke. I'd like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.
Very much, yes.
Yeah, Jillian, what the hell?
Oh, Jess's son.
Yeah, no, what Jillian said.
Your son trying to give you COVID.
Yeah.
That's what Jess said, too.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that as funny.
That was a response to this. Hold on. What was funny?
Oh.
Like, I want to
I see.
give Julian a chance, because maybe there's a miscommunication over what he was responding to.
OJ is probably a full week. Ava Braun, she's interesting, for sure. Thank you, Rick.
Just want to give Julian a chance to explain what that meant, etc.
Yeah. I saw a movie about Scientology. There's some interesting ones out there, for sure. It's just been a while since I've looked into it. Yeah. I'm doing, like, topics math in my head.
Yeah, that's not funny. Second.
Okay, so I think that there's a misunderstanding with tone, and I'd like for there not to be a fight. Like, I can totally see how something could have been read in a way with humor, because like Ruffle Iron Chef said, just like
that's
I laugh at inappropriate times. Like, sometimes things are so awful that you laugh. Like, I do that all the time, and I've had to learn how to, like, you know, make sure that I am making it clear, like, I'm not laughing at you or what you're dealing with. Like, I'm just, like, it's almost like a defense mechanism for a lot of people. Like, I definitely have that. Like, whenever I'm freaking out and nervous, I'll start smiling, which will then get me in trouble. But yeah. So, yeah. Thank you for apologizing, Julian.
and case in
And
point.
Jess, it's
Case in point. Not if that was insensitive. It was insensitive. There's no if there. Like,
Yeah.
it's very, very clear.
Like, it, like I have a big problem with like, oh yeah, the way he tried to murder you is funny. Like, no.
What Atomic Elbow said, communicating via text can be misunderstood sometimes. Like, I was reading it very much as like, I am so frustrated and scared I'm venting. But I could totally see how it can be read as like, let me tell you about the ridiculousness my shitty son is up to. I'm not saying your son is shitty. I'm saying like that's how someone can read it.
Thing your son
Yeah.
is up to,
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't. Yeah, like it's just I feel like it's just a miscommunication. So I know that like everyone is like really stressed out right now with everything going on. I'm definitely stressed out when COVID is in your house. And, you know, affecting people close to you. So I could see very much both sides here, how both things could have been read. And I don't think that there was any maliciousness intended at all.
Case in point, like, what Just was describing would be something I would tell in a joking manner.
Yeah.
Because of my sense of humor.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone has their own sense of humor, but it really should be more cautious about making sure you interpret something as a joke if it's a joke, and not assume that it's a joke.
Yeah. So understandings of the risk associated with this pandemic often rely on an understanding of individual circumstances. Not everyone really worries about the pandemic because not everyone feels at risk. Yeah. I mean, like, with any sort of, like, major traumatic goings on, like, there's going to be wildly different reactions, and that is on macro and micro levels. It's a total miscommunication. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's just misreading. Yeah. Wish we could all smock together. People have gotten it just from being in the classroom all the way across the room. I totally understand, Jess. Like, I absolutely understand. And it's very scary. My dad is in, like, he's not in the hospital anymore, thank goodness, but he's in a nursing home, having to go through, like, complete physical therapy and having to learn how to walk again after getting COVID. Like, and my sister's having to lock herself in her room basically 24 hours a day because her roommates have it, and she has no immune system. Like, I very much understand how scary it is and how everyone is on edge. But yeah. For the record, I believe the CDC has quietly stopped promoting the Stop the Spread message because they believe we are fucked. Yeah, unfortunately.
Plus, it's already it's spread. It's like,
yeah.
You can't really spread it anymore. It's like, the toast is covered in butter. You can't spread it anymore. It's already fully spread.
Yeah. So yeah, so what I'm saying is, like, we all get how scary and awful it is, and I can see also just very much how someone could be trying to just find anything, because I do that with other things. Like,
coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism.
Coping mechanism, yeah.
I think COVID humor is going to mostly be too soon until the pandemic is at least approaching over.
Over.
I mean, but the thing is, like, if you're, like, there's different ways of doing it, and different audiences and different times. Like, I've seen some stand-up comedians who have managed to make it very funny. Nate Bargatze and Jim Gaffigan both released stand-up specials on Netflix that address COVID in ways that make you laugh at how horrible and scary it is. And that's the way that I like to cope with things personally, is by laughing at it. Like, watching TYT, yeah, I think his daughter got exposed or something like that, Atomic Elbow. Any type of communal living situation is a nightmare. Yeah, like, other roommate has been having to wear a mask since returning from California. I think she just stopped finally, but, like, you just gotta be careful. Yeah, like, so I had several years ago, basically, like, my entire life fell apart all at once. It was about as bad as things could get in a pre-COVID era, basically. And like, I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with it. I went from very, very privileged to losing most of those privileges and then some. And a lot. There was a lot going on. And basically, like, when people find out about all of the different things that I was dealing with, they'll ask me, like, how did you get through that? How did you survive that? And basically what it comes down to is realizing very early on in the process that I had a choice, and I could either laugh or cry. Like, and every day, still to this day, I have to wake up every morning and figure out, is this a laugh or a cry day? And some days it's not the one I want it to be, you know, but like sometimes things are that awful that that's the only way that you can do it. That you try to find any like drop of humor anywhere. Hopefully I'm making sense. I hope. Yeah. But yeah. I find myself having to pause before sending most things, even to people I know, because my sense of humor is super sarcastic and not many understand or get that I'm joking. If my brain is on strike, it's definitely 10 times worse. Yeah. I have made a very, very conscious effort in the last couple of years to really work on, like, focusing on the way that what I say is being perceived by people instead of the way, like, my intention is. And that has been a cause of a lot of problems in the past for me, where I will be making a joke or saying something, like, offhand and not really think about how the other person is hearing it. And it's led to really, really, really bad things that have happened. And so it's taken up until the last couple of years for me to be like, like, I don't know, I'm babbling, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'm making sense though. It's scary, not just for my own life, but my son has ADHD and is on the autism spectrum, so if I were to die or even be hospitalized, there would be nobody to take care of him. Yeah. I've, working with kids with disabilities for a long time, I've definitely talked to lots of parents with that same fear. And adults with special needs as well. Like that, some very older parents, especially because a lot of the people I would work with had Down syndrome, and Down syndrome, one of the circumstances that can lead to someone being born with Down syndrome is if the parents are older. And so a lot of the parents that I would work with the adults that I would work with, were very old, and they were having to deal with that and face that and try to figure out plans and everything. And yeah, it's definitely something that is really a lot. So yeah, hopefully I have made sense and I'm not like babbling or coming across as condescending or anything. Yeah, it's only been in like the last couple of years where I've finally started to actually like make sure to clarify and that my intent was perceived correctly, and you know, so hopefully that all makes sense. But let's try and figure out Thursday's topic, if that's cool. If we move on to that, just to kind of like get things back to a less anxious place, hopefully. Hello, but you have a lot of support here. I don't know if Julian is still here, but if he is, like, shit happen. Like, misunderstandings happen. Regroup to the chill place. Hell yeah. Sarcasm is prevalent with many Australians, but so is self-deprecation, so I have to make fun of myself. Yeah, same. Hello, Splutbringer. Welcome. Julian won't be back. I'll try and message him later and see what's going on. But yeah. Welcome, Splutbringer. We've been talking about Pocahontas, but we kind of finished. So now we were talking about what the topic for Thursday should be. It looks like the topic for next week will probably be Scientology, and I feel like it's going to take both days. So I'm trying to think of what could be Thursday, and I'm looking through my list of topics for ones that yeah, Splutbringer, it happens. I'm gonna message him later. I'll message him later. Okay. So here's what I've got. We've got... I'm looking at ones that are just like a one-day topic instead of like a full week topic. Jonestown. New York City mobsters. Aleister Crowley. London beer and Boston molasses floods. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. I have a lot to say about that. I did an episode of my podcast on that already.
Especially after recent fire in the Bronx.
Tower of London. Marie Antoinette. The Civil War draft riots. I could maybe do both shipwrecks in one day instead of spreading it out over a week. But yeah, did any of those sound particularly interesting to anyone? I'm going to read them again. Here we go. Civil War draft riots. Marie Antoinette.
Toilet paper.
Ah! Toilet paper. Thank you. Okay. I lost my place. Okay. I could maybe do both shipwrecks in one day. Yeah, so all of these are going to be covered one day. Okay, toilet paper, cool. All these are going to be covered eventually. It's just a matter of deciding what to cover on Thursday. So, okay. So there's 2 shipwrecks that I've mentioned before. But let me say the other ones. Civil War draft riots. Marie Antoinette, I might want to take a little longer for. Okay, so Civil War draft riots, Tower of London, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, the London beer and Boston molasses floods, Aleister Crowley, and Jonestown. So Solo Draft Rides, Tower of London, Triangle, Fast Factory Fire, Shipwrecks, and Jonestown. Okay, poll is up. Are you allowed to promote toilet paper brands on Twitch? Don't tell, please. I don't. Draft Rights, Factory Fire, Crowley. Yeah, I think the Crowley's gonna need a little bit longer for me to have time to fully research. The Fire Factory, I watched Bailey Sarian's video. It's super interesting and it's very sad. I did a podcast episode on it a while back. I have a book about it that I've read all the way through that is just fascinating and devastating. And the suffragists, there's a lot of, I actually haven't watched Bailey Sarian's video on the fire yet. It's just a topic that I know really well, and so, like, I just need to be, like, in the mood to watch a video on something I know really well instead of something new, you know? Plane crash survivors. Are you better on there? A preemptive. Toilet paper has been claimed.
Just her hat.
Communism.com. You're so ridiculous. Can you drop down the poll just so I can see where we're at? Civil War draft riots. Okay. Civil War draft riots is a good one. Like, Civil War draft riots had a major impact on New York City very much, but it was a big deal. I just shook my head like you can see me. But okay. I haven't. There's a building that I go past on the way to my surgeons that a very specific event in the Civil War draft riots happened right in front of that building, and so like every time I go past it, I'm just like, oh, I know what happened right there. Like, it's weird.
Pass me the hat.
But yeah, okay. So Civil War draft riots on Thursday. Unless someone comes in with a lot of votes at the last second, it looks like it's going to be Civil War draft riots. And then next week I'll do the shipwrecks or Scientology. Probably Scientology, because then I'll have more time. You proud of that one?
Yeah.
You proud of that?
Yeah.
Ken's unit got like turned up or something. Me too, fine. Okay, can I buy votes? I have not. We did not make it so that you could buy votes. But see something. Hi. I have a political memes page called Seizing the Memes of Production. Very funny. Yeah.
Re-angle the camera so they can see her.
Discarding my Tamago sushi.
And the communism.
Maybe use my Smeagol rewards. If only. Maybe next time we have a poll, we'll let you use stuff for it. Maybe. Like for topic. Smeagol is causing hearing loss. Oh no. Smeagol. The damage. Fake poll.
But is there a cuter way to lose hearing?
That's a good point. So I had an idea of making it so that there's just like a website or some like kind of like the song request websites that like Twitch musicians will use, or something like that, where like you can vote like once a week on the future topic, and then you can use like bits or points or something to like do more often or extra or something. We're still kind of figuring out the details. but because I'm really wanting to kind of make it more interactive for like what's going to be covered next. Like I want you all to have a say. An audio noise cut.
If we could get the mic focused just on you, then that would help a lot.
I don't know.
I know how. I just need to get parts.
Okay. Okay, we'll work on that. But yeah, so like I want y'all to have like a say in what comes next, you know? A noise gate or a limiter. Rhetorica, have you been here the whole time? Can I ask you take my email and let me know yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me look into creating a email list.
You were playing D&D. I posted a bunch of D&D memes last week. I don't play, but I can appreciate because I have so many friends who do. You can configure Twitch notifications to email you things. Oh, cool. I'm down with Scientology as a topic. Okay, so I think next week the topic is going to be Scientology. And we'll see if it takes me a day or 2 days. But that way also I'll have like the whole weekend to kind of be poking at things. And I think that will make for a better live stream. An email list just so that you would get a notification when we go live. Just because Twitch isn't always the best about it. And Andrew says that he's not always on Discord. So, yeah, Scientology is super wild. I watched a bunch of the Leia, how do you pronounce her last name? Ramini? I watched a bunch of her stuff that was really interesting. And then just like the origins and like all the stuff that they've done is wild. It's a lot. So, if you got Twitch open, it doesn't let you know, but it usually does an email. Interesting. I only get notifications if I have Twitch open, so it's interesting that it's the opposite for you. Armac, did you just respond to yourself? Watch a Scientology movie together after you've done the deep dive. Let's watch Battlefield Earth. It'll be great. Hi. What's up? You gonna come over here? Hello. This is Jitsia, everyone. You wanna say hi? Look right there. Yeah. Remini. Thank you. Jess. Watch, now. And notice how the Smeagol intensifies as soon as the cat shows up. I know. That's you. Hi. Yeah. Don't listen to her. She likes being held like a baby. The feeling you get when you learn a favorite actor is similar as a Scientologist. Yeah. A lot of them are former Scientologists, at least. But if you listen to... Yep, this is the bed-shitting cat. Yep. If you listen to the stories of the people who have gotten out and, like, what it took to get out, and, like, a lot of them are, like, born in... yeah, that's you. You're famous. You and your bed-shitting prowess. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Jitsia. She and Smeagol are best friends, right, Smeegs? Yeah. Alright. girl heard your kitty and started smelling my screen. Aww. Hello, MK Ultra. She wants whatever it is that Smeagol wants right now. We have to be very careful with when we feed Smeagol because this little asshole likes to steal all of the food. Yeah, that's you. Cut off like Mormons if you leave. Yeah, it gets really brutal. MK Ultra, you missed the poll. On Thursday, we are going to talk about the Civil War draft riots, and then next week we're going to talk about Scientology. Because we started talking about Scientology. Yeah. Don't bite me. But all those American things like the Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, and Christian Scientists would be interesting to hear how they got started and grew. I grew up next door to some Jehovah's Witnesses down the street from a Mormon temple. Yeah. A lot more variety than you would expect in Orange County. Jadzia is a Star Trek character. We are a very nerdy house. We have Smeagol and Jadzia. What are you doing? Not you, you're fine. But yeah. So, producer Brian is working on making an email list right now. Yeah. That's mine. That's not for you. I was going to ask if you've heard the murder of Hazel Drew in New York in 1908. Hazel Drew. That is not sounding familiar, no, but I can look into that. There's a lot of murders in New York that happened around that time, to be fair. I'm a big fan of Evelyn Nesbitt's husband murdering Stanford White because Stanford White was a creepy pedophile. Despite being a brilliant architect who made some of my favorite buildings in the city, fuck that guy. And so the husband of one of his former victims killed him. And yeah. Cool. Hazel Drew, I'll look her up. Turn of the Century murders here are very interesting. Oh, I was pronouncing it like Gaja. Oh. Yeah, I was mispronouncing it for a while when I first moved here, because I am not a Star Trek. But, now I know how to say it. Yeah, talking about you. Don't forget that Danny Masterson is literally trying to use his religion of Scientology to get out of rape charges. Ew. I don't know who that is, but that's gross.
He was one of the characters on that 70s show.
Oh, the curly one that we were talking about before. Right. Troy, New York. Okay, so if it's not New York City, that explains why I wouldn't have been familiar with at least the name. And Tom Cruise, yeah, of course. Yeah, we were talking about him last week for some reason. I think that he was a creep, something like that, and I wasn't sure which one he was. And clearly it stuck. I hope you're all enjoying my naked puppy. Please don't tell Twitch that there's nudity on the stream today. Alien wife puppy is summoning me. Aw. Please tell alien wife puppy that we say hello. And we'll see you on Thursday. Tom Cruise used a church against his ex-wife. Yeah, both Nicole Kidman and Katie Holmes. Yeah. Yeah, poor women. But as soon as producer Brian is done with what he's doing, and we can put the link in chat so that y'all can put your email addresses in, we're probably going to wrap up. So if there's anyone that you particularly want to raid, let me know. those are my favorite pronouns. No thanks. Did you get a chance to look at the recommendation you sent about the unsolved murder of 40 years? Was that the link in the Discord? And I think it was the Bailey Sarian video. I saw that. The only thing that I didn't like fully process it was because of wanting to take a step away from true crime for a couple weeks. But I will definitely be going back to true crime because it's one of my true loves. My lifelong loves, at least. So yeah, so it'll definitely be coming back. It's just like for the last couple weeks I've pretty much only done true crime. So yeah, just kind of switching that up a little. Leia, her escape is wild also. I've listened to her story. It's crazy stuff. Lost Sue is based into. Ooh, that would be super perfect for today. Cool. How's this all going?
No, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Do you want to just put it in the Discord later?
I think I'm almost done.
Okay. It was in Discord, but it was an article. I'll look again. Cause yeah, like I said, I like true crime. I feel very strongly about true crime being a positive thing. I think that it is especially important for women to be at least somewhat familiar with true crime, because when you know about the things that have happened, it helps you avoid them happening to you. I also think that just psychologically it's helpful to be taking in some true crime, just because I know that sounds like counterintuitive, but like growing up as a woman, especially in the United States, you are kind of like belittled for being any sort of like fearful or paranoid, taking any sort of caution. What are you doing? With men, and like there's a lot of gaslighting that goes along with it, and so I've kind of just called true crime like the anti-gaslighting, because it's kind of just reassuring you that no, you're not imagining things, and yes, there are people out there who are bad and who do bad things, and here's how you can get through whatever they may or may not do and how you might be able to survive it, because here's what other people did and survived. So I think that like while it seems counterintuitive that true crime can be helpful, I think it actually really is. And yeah, I just saw she enrolled into NYU because Scientology prevented her from getting an education. Good for her. The last thing that I saw was her talking about how she didn't get an education. I didn't know that she'd enrolled. That's awesome. But yeah, so please join the Discord, and now we have a mailing list apparently, so that's cool. And we're gonna raid Lost Sue. From Matoaka out there.
Oh yeah, I actually follow them.
Thank you, Armac. I hope that you guys really liked it. I know that there's not a lot that people know about Pocahontas and
Matoaka.
and Matoaka.
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 That's right.
And yeah, so I like, bringing lesser known facts. So thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully I'll see you on Thursday. And yeah. And here we go for the raid. On Thursday there will be painting of JR.